Jennifer has so much phenomenal energy and really great tips that you are going to hear. Being a woman in the tech industry, number one, she understands how to navigate difficult situations and crush it. Started multiple companies, and her last company, she scaled it, sold it for a massive exit, and now she is an expert scaling up coach, showing entrepreneurs how it is done. And for a little bit of background, Walzer Berkowitz is the managing director of R&J Advisory Group. She's got an extensive background in technology and business strategy consulting. Prior to founding R&J Advisory Group, she started Boomi, which is that tech company that I talked about. And in 2003, it was a premium white glove online backup and recovery business for the financial industry. And she built it to a multi-million-dollar debt-free and profitable business in New York City. Jennifer has been invited to speak on various topics such as disaster recovery and data security at major conferences across the country. And she's been featured in numerous national publications such as the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Daily News, Money Magazine, New York Enterprise Report, and Crain's New York Business. She has blogged on her own weekly column for the New York Times called CEO's Journey, and in the small business online section. She sold Boomi to a J2 Global, which is a company that trades on the NASDAQ, and was able to allow her to retire at the age of 40 in 2014. So please tune in and enjoy my chat with Jennifer. Okay, my powerhouses, I am here with Jennifer and very excited to jump into everything she has to share and talk about. I think you're going to find quite a bit of value from it. So Jennifer, welcome.
Thanks. Well, I'm so happy to be here with you and your audience.
Thank you. And so I'd love to know and hear really where everything started from. So your bio is very high level. Of course, it sounds incredible and super impressive, but you have had a super cool, interesting journey from when you got started and grew a tech company, of which before we started recording, we were bitching about how much technology is difficult, or at least my competence around it. But walk us through that journey from where you started and really how you got to be where you are now as a scaling up coach.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, my journey actually started when I was a young girl. I remember actually when I was 8 years old, I learned what the word entrepreneur meant. And I remember going into the dictionary or the encyclopedia, and I was so curious. I'm like, what is it? What's an entrepreneur? A business owner? And I don't know what it was in me, but you know how they say, our leaders, is it something in us? Do we learn to be a leader? It was definitely in me as a kid. And so growing up, I was just always, I had a competitive spirit, not in a negative way, but just, I was always, I always wanted to be the leader. And I would always try to sell things, do things, just to make money. I was just so intrigued with the whole business owner concept. And when I was older, my dad's actually a rocket scientist by trade. If I can actually say. And I was the youngest of three girls. And I was the one daughter that absolutely loved math and science. And so my dad, being an engineer, really took it upon himself. He really kind of enveloped me and said, I want to really teach you about computers back in the day before. I mean, I'm 50 years old today. So this was way before the internet. And he would just start to teach me programming. I knew I wanted to be a business owner, but I didn't know specifically what to learn, what major to major in. And my dad said, why don't you try computer science? And at the time, it was very unheard of for women to be in this industry. But I decided to try it. I absolutely fell in love with it. I was programming on the VAX VMS mainframes with the green and white think paper. I mean, it was mind modeling now looking back. I was the only girl in my class, but I loved it. And so that kind of started me off on my journey. I became a programmer after college. I realized pretty quickly that was not where I really needed to be. I love being in front of people and just connecting with others. So I had like these different journeys. My first entrepreneurial journey was when I was 23, 24. I noticed I was doing some consulting work to labor unions. I noticed that they had the same routine situation going on, rows of women answering the same phone calls. So I knew there had to be an automated way to do it. I knew that there was technology out there that could connect to telephone systems. So I thought, well, why not automate it so that members at any hours could get their annuities balances, pension balances, find out if they're eligible for healthcare. So I started this business, realized pretty quickly, you really have to love what you're doing. It was not something I was passionate about. I followed the dollar. I completely admitted it, Nicole. After about a year and a half, I got rid of the company, and I also wasn't loving programming all day. Got involved with some .coms, but it was one of those customers later on in life that lost their data. This was right after 9/11, and that's what started me when I started my online data backup and recovery business. This was in New York City, and my whole business model was I knew everyone has disasters. The chances your servers are going to crash was 100% guaranteed. It's just a matter of when. And so I thought, at the time, the technology was available to break down packets of data, encrypt it, send it off site in a more secure format. So I started this business called Boomi, Backup My Info, lived on oatmeal and PB&J to get it off the ground. But ultimately, it did succeed. It was a multi-million-dollar company, very profitable, debt-free business. I won't bore you with the details right now, but basically, I scaled it. I sold it in 2014. It was an incredible experience. During that tenure, I did hire coaches. I'm a big fan of coaches. I did hire a scaling up coach, and I just believe that the whole scaling up methodology works if you really want to scale and dominate your industry, which is what we were doing. So when I retired at the age of 40, I said, okay, what do I do with my life now? And people were saying, Jen, can you help me scale the way you did? So I decided to go certify myself and learn to become a scaling up coach. I just work with a handful of CEOs and help them really dominate their industries, have a lot of really good case studies that, just seeing my clients soar is so much fun. And I play a lot of tennis. I have 2 boys and an awesome husband, and that's my life. Long story. Sorry to...
I love it. No, it's great. I'm just listen, I'm like, you are just goals. I love.
Oh, you're so sweet. Look at this dog.
That's why you look like you're 40 at 50.
Oh, no. Can you see mine? Can you see so?
No, I cannot. But I can see mine. Like the bags under my eyes. I was just joking, not to digress, but I was doing yoga last night with a girlfriend, and we walked out, and it was hot yoga. And so our bodies are steaming as we walk out into the freezing cold, and snow is coming down. And
gosh.
I feel like Buffalo just zaps the life out of you, the youth out, all of the things out of you. We got to get the hell out of here.
It does. Thank God for the daylight savings. I live in South Florida now. So for me, even wearing long sleeves right now, after this, I'll probably put my tank top back on. It's 8 degrees out. You got to come down here.
Rub it in. But for sure. Yeah. So that's super cool, and it's hysterical because everything that you talked about in the tech space, I really I don't understand it whatsoever, but I do know it's pretty complex, certainly male dominated and highly competitive. And I'm no stranger to that, certainly in my field, but
it's in finance. Yeah.
Finance is so much of the same, but different, right? In terms of, I think the practices, but it is super cutthroat and very few women. And as far as your journey goes, what were some of the challenges that you had in getting started? Especially, I would think when you started your company, it was pretty innovative, right?
Yeah.
And there must have been an education curve there with selling to customers, right?
Yeah. So I think I had a few challenges. One, outside of just being a female, right? One was I started this in 2002, late 2002, early 2003. And what was happening was, right, a lot of people were still on dial-up, right? So when I was saying this, when I was sharing this concept of backing up over the internet, people were like, you're doing what? They just, everyone was just so used to backing up on tapes locally and just storing it off site. So there was a lot of education that I had to do. So that was probably my first hardship, right? Was trying to educate on top of doing everything else. The second thing, and this is really more on the female side, was that being a female leader, I used to not have titles. I used to keep 2 different business cards, one with my title on it and one without my title on it. And what I noticed is that when I would go to client sites, prospect sites, I remember one time, so we were focusing on the financial services market, actually, banks, hedge funds, broker dealers. And I think it was a bank. I remember going into their boardroom, and there was just a whole room of tech guys. And I remember them looking at me. They didn't know what my title was, but they were staring at me and who is this woman or girl, in front of me. they started pounding me with a lot of different tech questions. And I know darn well that they would have never asked these questions if I were a guy in that room. But they were challenging me nonstop to see, okay, was I just some person that was just hired to just try to get a meeting? Like, who was I? And what I notice, and I tell women this all the time, is you're going to get more challenged. You're going to go through two, almost like a different hills, because in that scenario, yes, it was a lot harder. I had to answer all the questions, but once you get through that pass and they see that, okay, this girl knows her stuff, then you really catapult over a man. I'm just being real. Like,
Right.
if they have a choice between working with a man or a woman and at equal scenarios, they're going to choose a woman. And what's also a little bit easier, again, is that if I showed up at some prospect office unannounced, as a woman, the chances that, again, I was dealing mostly with men, CTOs of funds, that guy was probably going to walk outside just to see who's outside, who wants to talk to me, who's this woman, Jennifer, right? So if it was John Doe, he probably wasn't going to get out of his office. It's, again, this is just a male down, this is just human nature, right? So that part was a little easier, trying to get in front of people, but harder once you're in those meetings. But then again, once you've showed, okay, you're a thought leader, you're an expert, then you're off to the races. And so that's what I've noticed about being in this industry. That's probably been the hardest challenge. But I would say for all the female listeners out there is just ignore the stereotypes, ignore everything. I do not believe in glass ceilings. Just learn and grow every day. Be the best at what you do. I promise you, people are going to trust, people are going to respect you when they understand who you are and you prove it. That's what happened, at least for me.
Yeah, 100%. And I have to agree with that. Like, it was the same for me. And it took, of course, probably longer, right, than it would have, or I know it did for some of my male colleagues. But now I'm so much further ahead because I was consistent and outworked them. And so it's almost like those little things that made me feel like I was not making any progress whatsoever, all of a sudden just was a huge slingshot where they stayed the same. And I think there's something to be said about that. And I don't know if you agree, but when you start and you have something to prove, right, and you're working so hard and you build that initial baseline for work ethic and consistency and discipline, I feel like those habits that not everybody is able to form right away, and especially as an entrepreneur, are so helpful when you do start your own business and you're working on a lot of those things, because that's the hardest thing. And you probably see just as I do with entrepreneurs and where they screw themselves over all the time is they're lacking consistency in time management. And I didn't have an option but to crush my time management because of all of those things and proving how good I was and having to go over those hurdles. And then it makes you an expert at your craft and in getting over imposter syndrome, right?
The reality is everyone has imposter syndrome. If they say they don't, I'm sorry. Like, bullshitting. Like, I have so much experience, helping companies, scale and everything else. At the same time, look, we're always going to still feel, am I doing everything right? Am I the best at what I'm doing? And am I good enough? Like, this is natural. And I think we just have to accept it. It's just what we choose to do about it, right? Do we want to play victim, or we just want to say, that's where it is? Fine. Let's just keep moving forward. Everything in life is about mindset. And I think as women, we are a powerful group. We really are. In fact, I find that as women, when I look at the women I've coached versus men, I mean, just being straight, is most of the women clients are more profitable. They just, what they lack is the confidence. I feel like I have to push them more to think bigger. I think that as women, we don't think big enough. And why not? I think we fail to take risks. I read once, I thought it was the most fascinating thing. And I wish I could say who wrote it, but I remember reading one day, someone said, there's a reason why women don't take as much risk. If you think about how we grew up as women, it's the men, it's the boys who are asking us out, not the women, right? And so they've been taught to have rejection. They know what it's like. They've been used to it. Whereas think about our growing up. Well, how many times did we have to take risks? And I think that is probably, and I wish I remember, it might have been John DeJulius. I don't remember who shared it, but it was really a fascinating mindset thought to say, wow, what are we doing as women to really help them understand how to take risks and to be those powerful women, which is what this, podcast is about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And it is definitely so systemic. And it's funny because I've also read so many studies too, that women are better investors and they're better at averaging higher returns. However, fewer of them are doing it and taking action because of that adversity to risk and or this fear of speaking up, asking questions, taking action, where to your point, guys are just like, fuck it, let's do it,
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's
that that fear behind it. Yeah. And there was another study too that it was all about how women are less likely to advocate for themselves or ask for what they want and speak up, which is holding them back in this whole other area of which, again, men don't really have a problem with for the most part. Of course some do, but be that that may, it's these little things that we have to get over for that mindset hurdle, because at the end of the day, we just keep screwing ourselves over. And it's, having to normalize that conversation, so much more.
Well, here's what I would say is that anytime, even like asking for things or connecting with people, it is scary, right? But I can 100% assure that person that once they do it, they'll probably say, oh, that wasn't that difficult, right? It's getting over that hump. And I'm a big fan of what gets scheduled gets done. So just put it in your calendar to say, you know what, I'm going to make a phone call to this mentor to do it and just make it happen. I promise you, it's like, it's difficult at first, but get someone to hold you accountable. But once you do it, you're going to catapult yourself. Get those mentors, ask for more. When I was CEO of my company, I was really clear. I knew what I knew. I knew what I didn't know. So I made it a point to just constantly be asking people. What I used to do is when I used to find people that I thought were really impressive, I used to call them and say, I'm near a Starbucks. Can I just buy you a cup of coffee and just pick your brain for 5-10 minutes? And usually a lot of people, men and women, they're willing. If they see someone, especially I was a young entrepreneur, when they see someone that is so motivated, who's just craving success, like, why not help? I love mentoring others. I just think we need to, as women, we need to keep asking. And, and if you're not sure, what I would say is start with a list of 25 people. Make a list of 25 people that can be influential for you. Either they know people who you need to connect with, or maybe you know them and you can have a direct conversation with, maybe they know someone who you need to hire, right? Whatever it may be, make that list and then make a plan for the next quarter of what you're going to do about each person. All those conversations will help you skyfold. Like, infinite. Yeah.
And yes, I love And, it truly is like knowing what you don't know and asking for help is a superpower in itself. And I wish I would have done that way sooner. I waited way too long because I was like terrified of seeming incompetent, which is like a bunch of BS. And so, that is huge. And I love that idea. We joke, it's like the Dream 25 list, right? Of those people. And so I love that advice because it's something that I also talk about because we our whole lives, our whole careers, we've built this network of people that we know and that we love. Like, why aren't we using it? And so I would love, because I get this question, and I'd love to hear your answer on it is, okay, great. I have this list of 25 people that I would love to reach out to. What the hell do I do? What do I say? I'm afraid to bother them.
Don't be afraid. Because if you're afraid, then it's never going to happen, right? So the question is always work from the end goal backwards. Always, with everything you do, think about what is your end goal. So depending on what you're trying to get done, what does that person do that will help you forward? And then just ask. What's the worst thing they can say to you? What's the worst thing they can say to you? No? Fine. At least you know your answer. It's at least you'll know what the story is, but at least start with the end goal. What is it you want to achieve? Who in that list can help you get there? And then figure out and be really respectful of someone's time. If you say you're going to ask for 15 minutes of their time, then time it. Like, literally tell them, hey, I am going to be respectful of your time. I'm going to time it for 15 minutes, because there's nothing worse. Because again, I don't mind, when someone calls you, I'm happy to help. But if you say I need 15 minutes, then I'm going to give you 15 minutes. But if you keep going more, like, that's fine. Let me agree to that. But just if you show that, hey, I'm going to put a timer on to respect our time and to make sure that, we're using our time wisely, I think that's extremely respectful. And if you're finding that everyone is saying no to you, then I would challenge one of two things. Either you've got the wrong people, or it might be possible to look within yourself. What are you doing that's causing people to say no? Sometimes you have to take responsibility. I think, again, in life, I see a lot of times people tend to be this, woe is me, the world is against me. You know what? I'm going to challenge you on that. If you always say the world is against you, okay, maybe there's some issues going on. No one has a perfect life. So the question we just need to start thinking about is what specifically am I doing that's causing that to happen? Because until we look internally and start to figure out what we can change, you're going to constantly have that victim mindset.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so easy to be a victim because it feels good, right? One of my favorite books that talks to that specifically is Uncommon Accountability by Brian Moran. I don't know if you've read it.
Yeah.
It's a quick little read, but it's so good. And he has this chart that compares victim mindset and then the accountability mindset. And reading through that, it's like, ooh, some of these are like, they stick a little bit, right? Because they're subtle and it's easy to want to make an excuse. But in truth, like all you're doing is just giving these reasons versus figuring it out, right? And we can all figure it out. It's just a matter of like loving yourself hard enough to do it, right?
Totally. It's like, here, I'll give you some examples for the audience. So it's like when someone says, oh, I didn't have time, you didn't schedule time. Because if something is that important to you, you would schedule it. Or my favorite thing in business is that, oh, my team, they're always, asking me questions. They never know what to do. Well, maybe you didn't give good enough directions. Maybe you made some assumptions too. Like everything that goes on, anytime you are blaming someone else, I want you to stop and say, what was in my control? Where was my responsibility? Because, if let's say you say, oh, my clients are constantly paying late. Well, maybe you're allowing it to happen. So maybe you didn't set, the specific parameters around it. What do you need to do differently? So everything in life, there is something that we can control. Can we control, God forbid, awful diseases? Can we control? No, I have Lyme disease. At one point in time in life, I was blind and bedridden. Can I control that? No. Did I want to have that? No. But again, what in my power can I do about it? I just learned that I had to reset my world. I had to rethink about the food going into my body, the things that I was doing to make sure that I was maximizing the best output for myself so that I could heal. And again, I'm not saying that everything's healable. I totally get it. But again, I just think so much in life, it's about mindset. For me, I was just like so focused on the ability to learn how to play tennis one day. And that was going to be my way to get better, to heal myself. And every day I just kept saying to myself, I was on an IV for a year. I had a PICC line and I kept saying to myself, that's one day closer that I'm going to get healthier so that I can get on a tennis court. And I think when you have a goal and a focus and that mindset, anything is possible. Did I years later become a tennis player? Yes, but it took a lot of focus and a lot of, realizing what I had to figure out. I had to start eating clean. I had to start doing things for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you brought that up too. And maybe we should even dig a little deeper on it because I hear all the time that, well, when I get over this, I will, or when I make X, or when I get through this divorce, or which by the way, may take 5 years, or, it's all totally. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, do you want to wait to achieve everything that you're telling me about for that amount of time or not? And so what is the one thing that has to change? Like, life is always going to be hard. There's never going to be this perfect time. And I mean, we all go through these hard things. Some are definitely more devastating than others, but it's all relative, right? And how you deal with that. And I personally can say, same, like I've gone through some traumatic, devastating things, but if I would have let that take over my life versus choosing how to respond in that moment and be better for it, it would have set me back 5 years. And then how would you feel? And so when you got Lyme disease, like what were some of the things that went through your mind when you found out, but then what was the catalyst to say like, oh, hell no, like, yes, sucks. I'm going to handle it, but now what?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about my journey was that I was misdiagnosed for 17 years. So yeah, I was so sick. And everyone used to say it was in my head. So I used to say, what's going on? So it wasn't until I got diagnosed that I had to, change my life. But I don't know. I just realized that tomorrow's promised to no one. Yeah. And to go back to what you're saying, it's not promised to anyone. And so we can say, we'll take care of it then. We'll deal with it then. But you know what? You're kidding yourself. If you're here 5 years from now and you haven't made any changes, how are you going to feel about it? I mean, I know for myself, once I got diagnosed with Lyme disease, I still had to go through a whole journey of figuring out how I was going to heal. And I'm still healing with it. I'm still struggling. It's a lifetime illness. It's a horrible, horrible illness. I wouldn't wish upon anyone. But, again, it's a mindset. I talk to a lot of people with Lyme disease, and there are certain people that just, they feel like it's been given they got a death sentence and they just can't seem to get out of their own way. And my belief is that we have to figure out how to live. None of us asked for it, right? But it's a chance of like, what are we doing about it? How do we need to think differently? Everything in life, it's all in our head. There's going to be some diseases. I know my mom is suffering right now from cancer. How does she get out of that? It's tough, right? She's really ill with it. She's a freaking warrior. I mean, this woman is figuring everything out, but it's all there's only so much we can do, but we just have to maximize our life the best we can. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. And it is like mindset is everything. And Tony Robbins talks about that all the time too, and how healing it can be. I mean, love him or hate him, but I agree with him there, and in terms of that, and he's seen it time and time again. And I think it's important to refocus that and in keeping your positive mindset. What are some of the things that you have done to stay on that forward-looking high frequency? Are there things that you do as far as rituals or habits daily? Now I'm just curious if because it takes work to continue that positive mindset. Like it's not something that is just easy. So for those of you listening, like it's hard work to do.
It's hard. And I am not the best at it. So guys, everyone that's listening to this podcast, we all have our problems, right? I mean, there was a period of time, I know at the end of the year last year, I was like, I was eating like crud. I was just out of sync with myself. The way for me that I have learned that's been good for me is I created with a colleague of mine, we have created we'll call it a mastermind group of other coaches. Now, I'm a strategy growth coach. I'm a scaling up coach. And there's 6 of us, we're all located around the North America, and we meet once a month. And I think that's been helpful to check in with each other, accountability, making sure, what do we need from each other? And I think that's been really, really healthy for me. There's a lot of different organizations out there. I think just having an accountability partner, also surrounding yourself with the right people too. I think that if you surround yourself with other woers, it's going to be really hard to get out of it. But again, I'm going to go back with the same saying of what gets scheduled gets done. I do make checkpoints with myself in my calendar to see how I'm doing. I'm not even kidding when I say that, in 2 weeks from now, there is a checkpoint. I weigh myself on the scale every day. Am I obsessive about it? No, but I've gained, a handful of pounds last year, and I'm now, at a nice pace. I want to get it off. So I know that whether I ate a huge dinner last night and had ice cream or whatever, I'm still going to weigh myself the next day because it keeps me and holds me accountable. So I think whatever the method that works for you, again, I think that having my accountability group, I think having time in my schedule, and also here's something else that works. I have on my wall a picture of my vision, a vision wall with pictures that also helps to remind me of what I want. And I think that when you visualize something and you see it all the time, I have a wall of a lot of craziness that I don't want to show you. Oh my God. But I think when you see it, that also helps you to remember. So for those that are struggling with it, then put stickies up all over your place. Like if you struggle with food, put a sticky up of a picture of yourself in front of that refrigerator, whatever, again, in a healthy way. You don't want to do things like that's going to hurt your psyche, but anything that you can do. I don't know, Nicole, what do you do to help yourself? I'm curious.
Yeah. So accountability is huge. First of all, like anytime I want to accomplish something that scares the shit out of me, I say it out loud and I tell everybody I know. Because then I feel accountable. Yeah. And so that's been helpful. And I've actually been, and I'm in EO still, so Entrepreneurs Organization, that we have our forum. And that's been something where circling the wagons on is I've been trying to convince them to let's hold each other accountable, because I don't want to hear you guys bitch about this stuff, but not do anything about it. No, we have to start doing that. So yeah, I would love a mastermind group that is specific to just achieving what it is that you want and that is something on my radar over the next year. But for me, it's the metrics every single day. So I schedule it too, like my non-negotiables every day, and I measure that, because if I don't, I fall apart. I'm telling you, I must have that routine. So I listen to something every single day. I walk every day. I work out every day. And it doesn't matter how busy I am. It doesn't matter if I have 6 a.m. flight, I'm waking up at 3 a.m. to have the same morning routine. Like
That's
but I have just learned that like if I miss it, I feel off or like I feel sick, and then everything just kind of slowly starts to crumble. So it's because I know I am ADHD. I know I am not by nature a disciplined person. So that's why I stick to my rituals and routines or whatever and schedule it in, because it's like if I've been so self-aware and failed all of these times, it's like, well, what's the one needle mover? So for me, those are some of the things. And that's how I've kept my mindset right by everything that I'm listening to, because I am not good at always being like positive, and it's easy to be like, life sucks. And
but you nailed it. Routine will set you free. And EO is I've been a member for 17 years. I'm not in the forum right now because this doesn't align for me right now in my life. That's why I master. But there's so many different organizations. There's even like SCORE for businesses. There's EO, there's YPO, there's Vistage, there's a WPO for WPO. Yeah. There's so many organizations, and it doesn't even have to be as a business owner. If you are an executive that wants to learn, join an organization, join an association, find, whether it's a, HRIM, like find like-minded people that you enjoy hanging out with, and maybe create a mastermind that way. And you make it really clear. Like we meet once a month. We have a 2.5-hour meeting. It doesn't have to be that long for you, but just, you could even share like maybe what's the number one thing you're working on? Where do you need help? And you go around and you help one another. It's great.
Yeah.
I love You're amazing for getting up at 3 a.m. I definitely don't do that.
That's only when like I must. So normally I'm a 4:15er, but that's a work in itself, right? So I was just talking to somebody the other day, and she's like, I hate getting up early and I can't do it. And I'm like, bullshit. Like if you want to, and she's paralegal, she's got kids and she's working on getting her law degree. And I'm like, well, do you want the law degree or not? Because you're going to have to wake up 2 hours before your kids do to study for the bar or kiss it goodbye. And she's like, oh, I guess, and so it's just reframing that statement a lot of the time, because if you tell yourself you hate waking up in the morning, you're always going to hate waking up in the morning. Like
exactly. It's a great book. I love Mel Robbins' 5-second rule.
Oh, yeah.
That is an amazing book for this audience, because it's all about the psychological of that 5-second, you pressing the snooze button. So
it's so funny you bring that book up too, because that I referenced I first heard the TED Talk, How to Stop Screwing Yourself Over, which was all about the 5-second rule book. But that TED Talk was the first thing I heard that I personally think kind of saved my life. So I went through something really traumatic 7 years ago, and I did not want to get out of bed, didn't want to move on, and I was moping and eating breakfast in the morning if I heard that TED Talk. And then I read the book, and then I started following the 5-second rule, which is what started my listen to something every day. And I've been doing it for now 7 years. But if I hadn't heard that, like sometimes it's just that one thing, you guys, right? Like that one catalyst. And then all of a sudden, that's all you needed. So that was a little special place in my heart.
There's another book, Miracle Morning, that I recommend too. That's also, it's a little more detailed, but I think that just as a start, the 5-second rules.
Yeah. And it's quick reading. So we finish up. And of course, I want to be respectful of your time now. You are working with wildly successful CEOs. You're helping them scale. What are some of the things that you see often, and I'm sure there's some common denominators here, that are like frequent, how do I want to phrase this? Like things that entrepreneurs are typically doing wrong, or that are holding them back, that you help them convert to be more meaningful and powerful?
So I typically deal with more of the mid-sized companies. They're like, probably my average client's probably doing about 50 million. Of our client that's like 200 million. But regardless if you're 1 million, 5 million, 200 million, I see the same thing happen. Yeah. If you really want to scale, and I'm not talking about doubling your revenue and profit, I'm talking about 10x, 30x, okay? In order for you to do that, you got to have the right people in the right seats doing the right things right. I know that's a mouthful, but I find a lot of times that in fact, every single company I've ever done, They don't have a really clear dashboard. Metrics is what I'm talking about across all of the functions of their business. And it's really hard to manage a business if you're not measuring it. So if I say, okay, how is sales doing? Oh, it's going well. Well, how do you really know? How do we know that marketing is doing well? Why should that person get paid? Who owns customer advocacy? Who's advocating for the customers? How do we know how logistics are doing if you're an e-commerce business? So and I'm not trying to complicate things, but I think that just the fundamentals first is that you got to get your people right. Hands down, without, not even talking about strategy, anything else. You got to get your people right. If you have people that you've had, for a while, but they can't get you to that next level, then you have to be willing to make some tough decisions if you really want to get to that next level. Maybe there's a new role for them, or maybe there's an opportunity for them to go elsewhere. I hate to say it, but I'm just being straight. It's all about getting the right people in the right seats to do the right things right. Once you have the right people, then you can start to develop a clear strategy. You can get better on your execution. And when you're better on your execution, your cash flow is going to be better. One of my passions that I'm happy to share right now that I'm very passionate about is I feel that most female business owners, they don't have access to like I'm sitting in a boardroom, right, with these mid-market companies, helping them really go big in the marketplace, and they don't usually have access to someone like me. But I'm sick of that. I feel like that women, especially so many women I meet with, they have amazing business ideas. They are rocket stars, but they just don't have the tools. They don't have the experience. They're not asking the right questions. They don't know. And it's I don't even know what I don't know. So one of my top priority for 2024 is I'm going to be building online classes with live office hours for those women. They're established women, they may have a couple of employees. They just don't know how to get to that next level. They don't know how to get to that $1 million, $10 million mark. I have all the tools. I have all the experience. I know what they need. And I have gone through and I looked at the market and I see a lot of courses out there, but they're missing the meat. It's all about mindset. I get it. We just talked a lot about mindset, but you need more than mindset to be successful. So I'm in the process right now of building these classes. I'm really excited about it because I feel very strongly that women are powerhouses and we need to give them the tools. So I'm going to be doing that. And I feel I'm just beyond excited and beyond passionate about doing this because there's nothing that's going to make me happier than to see a whole slew of women just crush their goals. And I'm going to help them get there.
Yes, I love that. That is like all of what lights me up through and through, and certainly what gets me out of bed. So I love that you're doing that because it is a need. I can tell you, and especially with a lot of the stuff that we're doing, I mean, they need the strategy, right? The strategy and everything that goes in addition to mindset to get stuff done. You can't exist your business to success, but that is a huge part of it. So
yeah, there's so much, but what I'm going to do is do it in baby steps with everyone because there is a lot, but I promise that the stuff I'll teach is going to catapult companies. And I am just beyond excited. Again, this is so new. This is so early on, but I'm sharing this with you and your audience, and I'm happy for those that are interested. I'm happy to keep you posted with the journey, but it will be launching this year. I am ecstatic about it. I cannot wait to just share everything. I feel like I've been so lucky in my life. I don't even have to work anymore, but I had a crazy exit, but we got to elevate women, and I'm very excited to do it.
Love it. That's so cool. Yeah. So definitely have to keep connecting on that. So is there one last thought or anything that you want to share with the women listening before we end?
Crush it, girls and women. Like, we are powerful. Like, just make it happen. So here's my one request for everyone in the audience. Think of one thing that's going to help you get to that next level, one quantifiable thing. Then put it in your calendar, make it happen. Take some baby steps. You can think of a big goal, and if you have a big goal, that's great. Then what's the first thing that you're going to do to make it happen? And make a promise to yourself that you're going to do it within the next 2 weeks. Because if you make it out too long, it's never going to happen. Do a short little window goals, because we just talked about goals today. Just promise yourself you're going to do one step in a new direction. 1% every period of time is going to really add up. So just get that positive energy going. You are a rock star. You can make it happen. The world needs whatever it is that you're sharing out there, but we need to hear from you. So just make it happen. Let the world know about it. We can't wait to hear from you.
Yes, could not have said it more perfectly myself. Take action. And I will put all of Jennifer's information, how to contact her, links in the show notes, my powerhouses. So until next time, continue to be courageous.
Thanks.